Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. Welcome to today's Modern Sales Pros event. Transparency is key, building a winning sales culture, sponsored by Captivate IQ. Before we begin, and as we let folks trickle in, I'd love to know where everyone is calling in from. So please add in what city or state or country you're calling in from in the chat function located at the top right-hand screen. Please leverage the chat. I'll talk a little bit more about that during the housekeeping notes, but we love participation in our events. Now, before I introduce our panelists of today, I wanted to say a few words about the team at Modern Sales Pros. So for everyone who's not familiar, hello, my name is Angelica. I'm one of the community event managers at MSP, and Modern Sales Pros is the world's largest and highest quality community for those in sales management, sales leadership, sales and revenue operations, and enablement, aka our Modern Sales Pros. Our mission is to create an environment for our members to answer questions they struggle to solve on their own and help them to see around corners they may not know about. We do this through online session like the one you're at today, our online forum, our quarterly summits that we had earlier this month at RevX Fest, and we're starting to get back into in-person events, so stay tuned. We might come to a city near you. So if you're not already a part of the amazing community, you'll be invited to join right after this event. Now on to our awesome sponsor, today's event. This event wouldn't have been made possible without our sponsor today, which is Captivate IQ. I'm going to say a few words about Captivate IQ. They are a commission software, and they get commissions right with only platform designed to help you adapt, innovate, and scale. Captivate IQ empowers organizations to build the right commission plans for fast-changing business goals, balancing flexibility to support any plan component with usability to own the system and adjust commission strategies over time. They're doing awesome things, so I'm actually going to drop their link in the chat, so be sure to check them out. Now, quick notes on housekeeping. This event is being recorded, and you'll be able to access the recording and key takeaways at the end of the day on the previous event MSP events website. And if you have questions for our panelists, please add them in the Q&A function, and we'll be sure to get them. Now on to our panelists. I'm going to pass it off to our moderator today, Jorge, who will kick things off in introductions, and then I'm going to come back for wrap up. Jorge, take it away.
So my name is Jorge Estrada. I work with a lot of companies that are trying to create social or systemic impact, and I use my business development or the few skills that I have to help them generate more revenue, which is why I'm so excited to talk to Bill Perry and Christian Borelli today about motivation and retainment. Really, just the how do you measure, how do you find the right data into creating a sales culture that continues to produce, right? And it's been quite an acute problem that organizations have. So, Bill, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then Christian, you can go after.
Yeah, my name is Bill Perry, and I'm the director of sales enablement over at Privitar. And Privitar is a company that specializes in provisioning of private data and helping companies navigate this new world that we live in with private data and data in general. And that is me. And you bring up a really good point about commissions and culture and trying to retain people and in this whole new world, because sellers are good quality sellers are few and far between. And when you do get one, you really want to keep that person. And commission is one of the ways that you really want to keep them on board. You don't want to screw that up. Christian?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Thanks, Jorge. Christian Borelli, lead the sales org here at Captivate IQ. We're about going on 100 folks strong across our new business, account management, operations teams. Also have a past life in finance and then sales ops, where I managed and administered a lot of comp plans. Also written a couple under comp plans in just terms of the design from scratch for all different types of businesses. Something that led me to Captivate IQ, but also continues to be a big interest of mine. So excited to chat about all things comp today, but also any follow-up, anybody ever has questions. I love to nerd out on anything incentive comp related.
Excellent. So I think we can move on to the next slide. But what I really want to talk about is being able to have a source of truth, right? And how technology really comes in to help sales leaders determine where people are, where they need to go, and really allows them to be able to perform. So, Christian, because you work for a technology company that's involved in this, I would like to know what kind of tools you think a company needs to keep the salespeople motivated and productive.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially you look at any of those tech landscape charts today, there's like 7,000 different tools that you can have for your sales organization, right? But I mean, I think the key ones are the tools that allow your reps to be productive, but also stay motivated, stay happy, and stay focused on selling. So I think there's the basics like your CRM, like anything on the automation side, it's going to get stuff into the CRM. Tools like Outreach, Gong, that are just the basics for reps day to day, how they're going to essentially be good at their jobs. And then there's the other pieces that maybe aren't always the immediate thoughts from a seller mindset where they are going to need this to go about their day to day, but it's going to unblock things like more prospecting tools, all the new kind of wave of engagement tools, things like mutual action plans, all that kind of stuff. I think you're starting to see kind of that next wave. But typically where the sales team is focused is just that being productive. What I think it's generally on the ops team to focus on is what are the tools that are going to keep them motivated. That's obviously where Captivate IQ comes in. Generally, we're not selling into sales leadership. They're not the ones managing commissions. They're the ones working with ops and finance on what the comp plans are. Then it's ops or finance that's going to manage and administer the comp plans. And at the end of the day, salespeople want to make sure that they're getting paid. They also want to make sure they understand how they're getting paid, why they're making the money that they're making. If anything goes wrong, they're losing some money out of their next paycheck. They really, really want to understand what's going on there. So that's where it's important to have tools in place that can make it really clear to them kind of how that behavior is translating into essentially dollars on the back end.
Excellent. Bill, I'm curious because your job is essentially to enable people to use technology, use knowledge. And how do you see this question kind of shaping out from your end? And really, what kind of takeaways do you give not only to salespeople, but also to their managers in terms of creating a culture that's able to use these technology tools?
Yeah, the first assumption that when I start to look at training and developing and enabling a sales team is I want to make the assumption that I'm dealing with adults. Yes, I know it's hard sometimes when you're talking to salespeople, but yes, we're dealing with adults. And in adult learning, adults want to know why. Why am I even doing this? Why should I do this? And if you can help sellers understand the why of the software, why it applies to my world, why you need it so that it can help you make money. Once you answer that question and you connect those dots, then they're going to be so much more receptive to using the technology. But then we also run the risk of too much technology, because sometimes different departments want to buy different things and people aren't communicating. And the next thing you know, they've got a whole bunch of software, and then you've got to answer that question all over again. So try and keep it as simple as possible and answer that why question.
That's excellent. And Christian, just being on your side of the fence, are there any sort of essential pieces of software that you say to either managers or colleagues of yours that you say these are must-haves, these are must, for example, commission and being open and transparent about those as a motivation tool could be a really good way to get people to do their job as salespeople. So I was curious to see if there was any other ones, or if you want to talk a little bit more about commission technology as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think comp's a big one, especially in, again, market landscape's changing a lot right now, but we've been in this world for the last couple of years where it's been 110% a buyer's market in terms of sales reps. They could kind of get 10 offers tomorrow if they were good reps, and kind of pick up their litter of companies they wanted to go to. And what at least I saw over the last couple of years compared to maybe 2014 to 2018 is the bar is just a lot lower for when reps are going to get fed up with a company. Whether that's about bad enablement or commissions that aren't paid on time, their comp plans aren't clear, or they just don't have very good comp plans. we've been in this world where reps know that they can just go find something that's better. So, and that they're not going to deal with those headaches. So I think that's where you've got to make sure that you don't miss kind of the basics and give your reps a reason to start looking around. So commissions is obviously one of them. It's not just a tool, right? We help with a lot. But if you don't have clear comp plans or they're just not good plans in general, then that's going to continue to be an issue, especially if you do have a clear and transparent tool that makes it clear to the reps just how unforgiving a certain comp plan is. So I think that's a big piece of it. And then on the other end of the spectrum, and maybe more the world that we're moving into, when you have those really high performers, they're worth their weight in gold. You really need to make sure that you hang on to them. So same thing, you don't want to miss the basics that give them a reason, not necessarily to start looking around, but jump at that big offer that comes to them because, their manager left and went to a new company that's going to give them a big offer. That's where I think, again, you have to be, whether reps hitting 50% of quota, 100%, or 350%, got to make it really clear how well they're doing to the point where they're never going to question their compensation and there's never going to be that kind of wedge put between them and the company where they feel like they're losing trust and aren't staying fully focused on just closing deals.
Makes a lot of sense. Bill, I'm curious how you would answer that question.
It's commission it's a tricky little thing. I for one am not motivated by money, and in my sales world, I was never the guy that wanted the big score. And there's a really great book out there by a guy named Dan Pink, if you guys haven't read it, called Drive, and where he did a lot of research on what motivates humans. And the three things that he talks about are autonomy, what I write down here, autonomy and mastery and purpose. I want to be able to do it by myself. I want to be able to master it. And I want to do it on purpose. And salespeople get this, the stigma of they're all driven by money. But if a good manager asks a couple more questions, they find out what they do with that money. Why is that money important with them, and connect it to something that is incredibly valuable to them. A sense of purpose. I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this for my kids so I can have a great life for my kid and for my wife. Just a couple more questions, and you can really find out what's motivating somebody to get that commission. And when we disconnect the commission, or we, as you alluded to a minute ago, Christian, when you screw it up and when you ruin it for them, you really disconnect the humanity of it. And now you've lost all trust, and they're going to go someplace else where they can get that.
That's interesting, Bill. Is it that, so you're saying that it's not just the money and their commissions, it's that is a proxy for the things they're going to do with that money, or the things that the money makes them feel, that Correct. Kind of either purpose or the house they're going to buy or the vacation they're going to take their family on?
Yep, exactly. Sense of autonomy. Look what I can do. Look what I can do. Right. Sense of mastery. I'm really damn good at it. And a sense of purpose. I'm damn good at it, and I do it because of X. Those three things. And if you just ask a couple more questions, you'll be surprised. Do your own internal introspection. Why do I want to do that? And you'll see they'll line up pretty quickly.
That's so interesting. So I do work with people in leadership development. That's one of the areas that people tend to focus less on, is the sort of personal motivation and alignment to one company. So this question is for both of you, because I just thought of it. What is the data saying about a sort of let's say a compensation plan, a sales compensation plan, and people who are either hitting it or going above it, and the people who are underperforming, in comparison to, these conversations around motivation and what drives you to do your job? As an example, I'm like you, Bill. I'm not driven by money. I'm driven by helping people. So whenever I took that approach in sales process, I actually sold a lot more.
Right.
And I never really understood that until I looked at the numbers. So I'm curious, Christian, Bill, if you guys have any data to support some of the things you guys are seeing be sort of the secret sauce at some of these companies that you work with.
I wouldn't say I have anything off the top of my head, but if I did a quick Google search, I'm sure I could find some stats and numbers that point to, you just go to Instagram, for crying out loud. Everybody living in a small house in a trailer going everywhere. I don't want any money. I just want to be free. I want to do all these things. And people are starting to realize that, it's not the big fat paycheck and lighting $100 bills on fire at the sales meeting or whatever anymore. It's really about being authentic to ourselves and who we are and our family, and not selling our soul to make the sale, but giving our soul to help other people do great things.
Yeah, I'll say this would be an interesting survey to run out too, because we've got going on 100,000 people getting incentive comp on our platform. Should send a survey to them all and ask them what they do with their money. But I could speak just for our team and the teams that I've been a part of. Definitely runs the gamut, and I think even with kind of generational shifts, there's still people that think and act differently within each kind of cohort of reps. I do agree that the age of wanting all your reps to spend every dime of their paycheck so that they're hungry for that next one, I think that's past us. But today we've got folks on the team across our high performers that some want the watch in the car and the big house and that kind of stuff. Others have a number in mind that they want to hit, and then they're retiring as soon as possible. Others have more philanthropic activities that they're interested in. And I think it's on companies and managers to see those things and maybe unpack the things that money is really the proxy for, like you were saying, Bill, and manage people differently and kind of talk about their goals and aims as an extension of that kind of next big check or whatever, rather than just focusing on the paycheck itself. And we've even seen people grow just in a couple of years that folks have been on board. They've gone from one end of that spectrum to the other, and maybe some back again. But I think it's just important to recognize that, to your another point earlier, that reps aren't just totally coin operated. You can't treat them all the same. They're all humans. They all kind of evolve and adapt and grow over time. And you've got to kind of grow the management style and sometimes the incentive style to go along with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. You see a lot of new coaching software that's coming up, and they're trying to help sellers and managers become coaches, because I think the industry's finally realized, oh gosh, we've been promoting these top performers into leadership, but we really haven't given them the tools on how to be a leader and how to coach and how to do all these other things. Maybe we better help them out. And, those quality sales leaders that have the ability to sell and to coach are even more rare than the unicorn that has it all. And we need to help sellers get those skills so that when they do get into a management position, they understand commission. They understand that it's more than just a paycheck. It's getting your handicapped kid a new car. It's about life. It's about your mother, brother, father, sister, etc. There's so much more to us than just a paycheck.
That's spot on. And I do a lot of work on that side. So I see a lot of what you're talking about. We just went through everyone's tired of hearing about the pandemic, but we just went through a tough time. And I think especially for managers in terms of motivating their salespeople to really perform when the world is falling apart. And I'm curious from both of you, if you see any lessons that you would like to share with the participants today from that time, from that period, where you saw managers be successful in motivating their sales reps to continue to produce despite the chaos.
We're talking about when the world fell apart 2 years ago, or when it's falling apart right now?
It's always falling apart, but yes.
Yeah.
One person's falling apart as another person's falling together.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think, COVID was really interesting because it was such a sudden shock. And it was such a clear external event that it was a shock and a trigger for every company to suddenly completely change how they were doing things. Bill and I were talking about this before we jumped on. I, for one, am really impressed how quickly the whole tech ecosystem adapted to working remote. I was one of the people that said, hey, we have a 40-person BDR team. I never thought the team that big would be as successful as they are being fully remote. Yeah. And it worked out that way. So, but I think with 2 years ago, it was very sudden, and then lots of stuff went on. We recovered really quickly. I think now we've seen is kind of this gradual trend down over really the last 6 months in tech. And really just the last couple of weeks, I think everyone's kind of accepted it, come to terms with it. Every VC is writing their memo. Hey guys, this is what's going on. Rated in, RIP, good times, all that stuff all over again. And I think where 2 years ago, companies weren't forced to shift as drastically for as long, it might be different this time. Because I think there were some really good things that we adapted to during COVID, where we had to manage people remote, we had to hire remote, we had to really change the profile of reps that we were hiring, all that kind of stuff. But then things recovered really quickly, and it's been a great couple of years where everybody's growing really fast, right? And this time with, lots of people much smarter than I am, thinking that this kind of potential downturn could be a couple of years rather than a couple of months. I think this is where the good reps, the good employees, the good managers are really going to separate themselves from the other folks that were just kind of riding the beta over the last couple of years. I think it's on everyone to really, to Bill's point, be self-aware and focus on the things you're good at, the things you're not good at, focus on improving those, and doing the same for the people that roll up to you. Because ultimately, that's a manager's responsibility. I think it's going to be more important than ever now going forward.
Yeah. I would add that I've witnessed a lot of leadership embrace the humanity of the moment. And by that, I mean having a lot of genuine grace and kindness towards dogs jumping through a video screen, to cats and people and babies and just life happening. My wife is a consultant, and she does all the high end Accenture kind of big stuff. And she's always talking with CIOs and CEOs and everything like that. And I see every day cats going across the CEOs, like dogs and babies. And it's just really great seeing people buy from people and engage with people, and seeing that we're all flawed and gross and just awkwardly uncomfortable, but yet we're all human.
It's almost brought out that you said humanity. I think of it as empathy too.
Yeah,
we all just kind of understand people a little bit better. The world's gotten even just more casual.
Yep.
So you can be more kind of straightforward with the people you're selling to, buying from, people that report to you, you report to.
Sure.
And it's just allowed us to kind of maybe graduate from the pomp and maybe some of the superficiality that we've had historically, where it was more of a kind of dog and pony show, especially, you think about the 90s and software and how it got sold. I've just read books on it, but it seems like it was a lot more kind of selling futures and selling a vision rather than selling something that works, and buying something that's going to work today rather than a dream that might work 3 years down the road.
Yeah, I mean, in the vein of technology, our customers have access to more technology than anybody. They're doing their homework, they're doing their research. So sellers can't show up and just bullcrap their way through things anymore. They actually have to be somewhat intelligent and actually have to have good quality speaking skills and intelligence, and maybe offer something that is substantial, not just noise. And that changes things too.
So the reason why I truthfully got into sales was out of necessity, and I come from humble beginnings, so it was a way for me to provide for my family. So I say that I'm not driven by money, but in a way I was. And all this conversation around being humans and incentives really for people that are in sales. I'm curious from both of you, are you seeing from an incentive perspective and hitting quotas, is it just the compensation piece that's a company should focus on? Are there wellness things that are being put in front of salespeople that are being taken advantage of? Anything like that would help some of the folks on the call learn about some innovative ways to motivate their salespeople?
We at Privitar, they've done a really great job as far as allowing people to have 30 days working anywhere in the world, go do what you want to do, or having more time off. The company my wife is working with, they have no vacation hours. But at the end of the day, as long as we get the job done, let's get the job done. And I think people are starting to realize that our teams are a lot more productive than we give them credit for, and they can get stuff done in 2 hours what they were able to do in 8 hours every day. I don't know, Christian, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I remember the first time I ever heard the concept of unlimited vacation. And I didn't know that it was an accounting trick yet, but I was just shocked. And I think even now, if I talk to friends that are in consulting or banking or big companies, and their companies are trying to force them back into the office and they've got strict vacation time policies, they always kind of come back to the same thing, like, how do you keep an eye on people? How do you make sure people are getting their work done and all that? And, certainly every now and then somewhere in some company is gonna, maybe just be there for a paycheck and try and like half-ass it for as long as they can before somebody finds out. But generally speaking, I think especially in tech, because of the types of personalities that get drawn into tech, people want to do good work. They want to feel like they're adding value. They want to be rewarded for that value and see kind of progression in their careers, in their earnings, in their opportunities, in the people that they're able to network with. So, I mean, from the beginning, we've been unlimited vacation, but we enforce a minimum that we want everybody to take every year. And we fully embraced remote when COVID hit. We were 25 employees, now we're 300. And it's been, an absolute game changer for us as a company. And never once have we had an issue or even a suspicion where we think like maybe that person's not working too hard, because we just measure output. And frankly, especially if you just boil it down to an AE, if someone's making quota, exceeding quota, I don't care if they're working 4 hours a week or 40, because it's just the output. If they can do it in less time, that just means I'm going to have a happier employee, and that's better for everybody.
Yeah. Back in the day when I was selling many years ago, it was that you've achieved your success when you can take Friday off and go sit at the movies and play baseball or whatever, you take in a game or whatever, and you still crush quota. That's the beauty of sales in my eyes, is that, you're either doing it or you're not, period.
You see it in hiring too. I think, I think some of the best things I've ever done at Captivate IQ is just hire really amazing people. And it didn't really click for me just how big an impact it was for me personally until I took a week-long vacation a couple weeks ago. It was my first one in a long time. And I brought my computer, but no charger. So I was going to survive on one computer charge the whole week. And I only got down to 73%, and I didn't take a single phone call. I think I responded to like 2 Slacks. And when I came back, I was expecting to be underwater, and I was actually fine. So it was, to me, just a testament of how well the team kind of had a handle on everything. As a leader, sometimes I feel like my job is to make myself obsolete. If I were to get hit by a bus and the team's okay, then I think that means that I did my job well. So I think all comes back to hiring people that you can really trust to do the job and do it well.
Yeah, John Maxwell has a great axiom when it comes to leadership. A leader's job is to make more leaders, and if you can make yourself replaced, you're doing the right thing, and that's fantastic. Props to you. And it's really a great testament to quality leadership, because there's so many leaders that lead with control, and when they do step away, everything falls apart because they haven't done their job of helping them, the people that they work with, rise up. So good for you.
Yeah, I think. Thank you. Again, all credit to them. I think I got lucky hiring them. But no, I think it's not just control, but especially in sales, and I won't use proper nouns, but there's some of those coaching trees in sales leadership where people come out of kind of the same companies, and some of them have been really successful. But I think there's an era of sales leadership that's a lot of control, a lot of fear, a lot of keeping people really hungry on their comp plans. I don't know how you're able to hire and retain teams in that model, but I think that's really, even just the last couple of years, that kind of era is dying out, because it doesn't have that mutual trust with your teams that allows them to feel like they have autonomy and purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. And I agree with you. I think it's a different era, and there's a lot more focus on not just hiring your buddy or somebody that you know, and really creating a diverse team of people that bring different skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that has challenges as well, because being able to speak to motivation, as we've talked throughout this call, is going to look different for someone like me, someone like Bill, someone like Christian, because we're just different people, right? So I'm curious, with all the changes that are going on, if you guys are seeing things that are, from a diversity perspective, allowing leaders and the teammates to feel part of a team. Like the example that Christian gave is amazing. I wish my team was like that, but they're not. So maybe I need to hear from you guys some advice around that topic.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, on the topic of diversity in general, you've got to be intentional about it, and that doesn't mean it'll be easy. Like we've always been transparent that something that we struggled with early on was gender diversity within the sales org, and we had to be very focused about to get the right pipeline of candidates to fix that problem. But other than that, what we focused really heavily on is we didn't want to pick a profile and hire everybody from the same company or the same industry or anything like that. We specifically hired it was all the way through, maybe our first 8 reps all came from different industries, mostly SaaS, but very different pockets within SaaS, and then just put them through our training program. And I don't know that they knew this at the time, but in a way they were guinea pigs. We were trying to figure out what's the style that works best, what's the kind of background that works best, so that when we continue to scale, we know what to be looking for. And that really helped us tremendously, because it wasn't just the diversity in the backgrounds of the candidates themselves, but also just their experience. The other thing I'll say is I think there's been this trend and a bigger focus on diversity. I think a lot of companies, frankly, let it get away from them over the last couple of years, because they were just getting money pumped into them by VCs that said, you got to grow.
Yeah.
So they said, all right, we can't keep focusing on this. We just need to hire anybody that comes through the door. And I think that's a quality issue. It's also a diversity issue. Now where you see, a lot of companies adjusting hiring plans because they're getting told they need to extend runway for a couple of years. They can actually be a lot more focused on bringing in the right candidates and building strong diversity on their teams, which ultimately is going to build strong teams in general, but also get away from this world of just hire the next warm body that comes through the interview panel.
It's interesting. As you're talking, I made the leap to a typical salesperson who just wants to sell anything. They'll take any warm lead, and that is a sign for disaster, because we all know that a salesperson needs to qualify with strength and integrity and prejudice, because I don't want just anybody coming in here and seeing a demo. And take it to the hiring side of this house. If you're hiring just anybody, that to me tells me your leadership does not have a vision of what the team is going to look like in a year and a half and in 2 years, and the quality that you're building. And to answer Erica's question, what kind of support am I going to be building? What infrastructure am I building to help raise up leaders that started out as a BDR and they want to become a sales manager? How do I teach them? How do I coach them? And you've got to have that vision. And for me, I would rather hire a salesperson that is coachable and has a great attitude, rather than somebody who's been in SaaS for 25 years, because I've got to unprogram everything that they've learned and they've taught themselves, and I've got to reteach them how to do it our way. I'd rather have somebody who's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Whatever. Okay, let's go. So much more enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't know about you guys, but I haven't updated my own resume in like 7 years. And I don't know that other than here or there for specific roles, I haven't looked at a resume for somebody interviewing here for a position, because there's some things like for a rep, you want to know kind of some specific stats and how long their stints were, that kind of thing. But a lot of that's just stuff that's on LinkedIn.
Right.
And what we found was when folks were going over too much of a resume early on when we were hiring, they were starting to build biases before they even got into the interview, and it was getting in the way of them actually vetting the things that we thought really matter, which is just potential, coachability, and drive or hunger, which to your point are just far more important than the experience laden resume that winds up being a flop, which I think all of us have seen many times.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I I would much rather work with somebody who's enthusiastic, coachable, wants to move, wants to change, wants to grow, rather than somebody I've got to convince them why they should be using outreach sequences. And like, dude, this technology, I'm just used to doing it the way I'll be fine. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that even ties into Erica's second question in terms of letting somebody down. It's beyond the things that we've already talked about. You want to hire for that self-awareness. I think sometimes there are those top performers that aren't even searching for. They're expecting that next leadership role because they've been a top performer, but they've got that lone wolf mentality. They haven't really focused on showing any kind of leadership trait to new hires that have come on board or folks on the BDR team or whatever it is. So you want to hire for that. And then if somebody doesn't have it, try to help develop it, have those conversations. And sometimes they can be blunt, uncomfortable conversations, but at the end of the day, you got to believe that having that conversation is going to set that person up for success throughout the rest of their career. And it's not always easy, but I think you can get them to see and understand kind of your point of view, and then kind of team up with you on working on those things so that they can get there. And if there's somebody that just expects something, or they don't want to hear what you're talking about, or they're going to really push back on any kind of feedback or areas that you think they need to develop, then might not be somebody that you want in the org anyway, despite them being a top performer.
Yeah. I frequently tell salespeople, your level of success will be determined by your ability to have uncomfortable conversations. Uncomfortable conversations with your customers, uncomfortable conversations with your prospects, uncomfortable conversations with the people that you work with. And, let somebody down easy. Just don't beat around the bush. Say, hey, Erica, I need to have a really uncomfortable conversation with you. This is not going well. Here's the bar. You're at X. What do you want to do? And I hate having those conversations, by the way. I run from them. I've lost too much hair over these conversations.
I think this brings up another really good point. And I think self-motivation is great, and being self-aware of where you are in your career development is also really important. But it's also about letting people understand that they have a place in the organization. If you're not a manager, if you're not on that track for whatever reason, you still have a role to play, and you have to align yourself to the organizational goals as well. So I'm curious, again, if you guys are seeing effective strategies of getting from organizations or even just managers that are aligning people to these goals and make them feel like they're part of a team and they have a purpose in being at that organization.
Yeah, I mean, I think understanding somebody's goals when they come on board, and then having frequent check-ins on how they're tracking to those goals and the things that you think they need to work on. I think what can be difficult, and I've been guilty of doing this, is if you only talk to that person about their career progression once a year, twice a year, if they think they've been on track for something and they're waiting for that next promotion at that review cycle, and you tell them like, oh no, here are the list of things that you haven't done or you did wrong over the last 6 months, then what they're taking away is, okay, I've been screwing up. I wasn't told that I was screwing up, and now I've got to wait another year, another review cycle, whatever it is, to get to that next level or promotion or whatever. And I think that's where people are going to get defensive and upset, totally understandably so, right? So it's important to align up front and then just keep kind of those constant check-ins so that nobody's surprised when they're not tracking, or surprised when you want to give them that next promotion.
Right. There should be no surprises when it comes to an evaluation. It should be clear and obvious.
That's excellent. I like this idea of being upfront and honest. And if anybody in the audience, please put your questions in the chat. Happy to answer them. But just continuing on this topic, the whole point of this conversation was to talk about ownership and, again, motivation, but also being able to create a sense of pride. And in a lot of ways, people tend to lose that, especially when you're working remotely. So are you guys, from the data that you're seeing from your own teams or in the work that you're doing, are you seeing anything that's popping up in this age of remote work that you're seeing, oh yeah, this is something that is bringing a team in a cohesive way to drive toward a goal, and it's also motivating people on an individual level? Anything like that you'd like to share?
I'll say a big one is one thing that I've found from having probably too many conversations with folks here and folks across tech. People really don't want to work in an office, but they want opportunities to meet with their teammates and cross-functional partners in person. So whether that's doing, just happy hours with teams that happen to be located in a certain city, or functional offsites, obviously QBRs, anything you can do to get people that FaceTime with their manager, their peers, partners, whatever it is, I think makes a huge difference. Especially, I think, I forget which VC, somebody released a report on just kind of general sentiment and culture across tech ever since we all went remote, and every company's seen the kind of general trend down. It's because the theory was that because people are at home alone in a room, if they have a bad conversation or something's not going well, whatever, they're going to kind of stew and brood on that. Not go to the water cooler or go out for coffee with their friend and kind of talk through it and work through it with somebody that can maybe challenge them, versus in a room by yourself, you can just kind of get really frustrated. Some of it might be legitimate, but sometimes you can just end up kind of pulling yourself down. So I think it's really important that companies find the time and the budget to get folks together, give them the opportunity to not just get in a room and all work together. Some of that's great, but also, we just had a team do an offsite in Mexico City last week, and they all went to see a lucha fight and went out to dinner in a club and stuff. And that's the kind of things that we want to encourage with our teams, because we know that it's good for the people, and we're happy to find budget and support for all of that. Because ultimately it's going to make them happier and more productive and more successful here.
Yeah. The virtual world is nice, and it's great to be able to work from home and not commute. But at the end of the day, we're humans, and we need that human interaction and that human connection. I know I'm finding here in our sales world that sellers are now finding ways to connect with prospects not at the office, as opposed to going into the office, flying, getting a plane and flying thousands of miles and then doing this big dog and pony show. They may just fly to the territory and knock on and just have lunch with 5 different people in lunch, coffee, dinner, whatever it is, out of the office. They're pulling people out of the office, and they're finding ways to make those connections. And I think it's so critical and so important, because we really are people. And sales is just people buying from people they know, like, and trust. And we know, like, and trust with people that I can have a beer with, and I can shake a hand and I can look them in the eyes and say, hey, that was funny. And, getting creative and doing those things I think it's critically important.
That's Christian, you brought up the luchas, and I'm from Mexico originally, and I just brought me back to my childhood going to see some wrestlers with masks. So I would like to be part of that event next time. But
we'll get you on the next one.
Yeah, and I mean, that would be personally motivating for me just to join. So I think we're coming up on time. There was one more question around the kinds of things that you need to look at when things are going well, right? And your sales culture is producing and growing that organization. If you guys are seeing any sort of data around that in terms of bringing in people as individual contributors as a model, or bringing more managers to sort of break up teams as an organization grows. So if anything like that pops up in your head, please chime in.
Sure. They say if you build it, they will come. And one of the things that I frequently bring up in conversations when I'm talking with other leaders, whether it's business leaders or marketing leaders or sales leaders, I encourage the team to look at any development with a 5-year and a 10-year vision. Let's not buy software just to buy software and solve a problem. Let's buy something that has legs and ties into the rest of our tech, so that we're building something that will be supported by a 25-person BI team. Because right now we only have Joyce. That's the one person we have. But let's build it so that Joyce is building her team. And then when the team does arrive, they have the tools that are available to them. So you want to have that long-term vision.
Yeah, and I'll say, maybe to tie this into Peter's question in terms of transparency to give people on what that timeline will be for that next role. I think you want to have that vision, but also be transparent about what that vision is today. What are the assumptions that it's based on, and kind of continue to reiterate that it can change. And I think that's important, especially because we can see how quickly markets can change, companies' plans can change, that kind of thing. So you want to tie it to obviously their growth, what they need to do to be eligible for that next position, but also remind them that there's got to be a headcount around it. There's got to be the business need, and just constantly, assure them that you're going to give them clarity and transparency as you have it. I don't think it serves anyone well to hide anything or not be transparent because things can change. Yeah. As long as you're being clear that I don't think there's a company in tech that's not going to go off their budget or their plan this year, right? And if an individual knows that, they can kind of plan for that and understand when you tell them that, hey, we're actually going to need you to accelerate your growth and get into that role sooner because we're accelerating as a company. Or, hey, it might be a little bit longer because we're adjusting our hiring plans or whatever it might be.
I could understand if you're working at an IBM or an Accenture or something like that, where they've got this long program that's been established for 25 years. But today, companies are around for 4 years, 3 years, brand new. And transparency is incredibly important. And when I have conversations with salespeople, I like to be as direct and honest. And I'll say, look, these are the skills that you're going to need to develop and to grow. This is what you need to become. Here are the tools. I'm working on building them as fast as I can and put them into our program, but we don't have them just yet. Here's the program. Go buy the book. Go do that. Point them in the right direction and help them to build themselves. And it's very fascinating to watch. Some sellers will come and ask for help. I'll give them help. I'll point them in the right direction. They'll say, yep, let's go do it. And they go buy the books. They go to the programs. They develop themselves. And then there's others that go, yeah, I'm not going to drop a couple $100 for that. No, I'm not going to invest in myself. I'm not going to do that. You know right away who's going to succeed and who's not. And that's very eye-opening as well.
Absolutely. So thank you both so much for sharing your input on all these questions. I know these are hard topics. I've learned a lot here. And I would say that the biggest takeaway for me is that now we're in a situation where the compensation is not only tied to just money. There's motivation as a salesperson and as a sales leader, and that allows me to do things that are both personally enjoyable. And hearing your stories has been really great to be able to translate that into my own career and my own teams that I manage. So thank you so much. The whole topic of the talk track here was the secret sauce to building a high-performing sales culture. And from each one of you, I'd like to hear if you have that secret sauce, if that exists, and any sort of main takeaways that you'd like to share with the audience.
I think my secrets, the only secret sauce that I know of is called hard work. Just put in the effort, do the hard work, and it will pay off.
That's excellent. You sound like my wrestling coach in high school.
There is no substitute for hard work.
Yeah, I think you've got to be very intentional in your hiring and transparent in the information that you're providing that team as they're coming in and then as they continue to grow. And that relates to everything that we've been talking about around career progression, compensation, how the company is doing, what the plan is, all that kind of stuff. But you really got to make sure that you've got the right people on board. You can have the best product in the world, perfect sales playbook, but if you don't have the right people on board and they don't build the right culture, then no matter what, it's all gonna fall apart. So unfortunately, what that means for me is I've been behind on my headcount plan for about 3.5 years, but I think we've got a great team that proves that it was just fine that we were behind.
But if you're behind on your headcount, that must mean you're ahead on profits, right?
Yeah, and which means we need to be ahead on attainment, which we always have been. So it's worked out well for everybody.
That's awesome.
Thank you both so much. I've really learned a lot. I hope everybody online and that's watching this has learned a little bit from each one of you. And with that, I think we will wrap up.
Hey folks, I am back and I just want to say a big thank you to our panelists today, Christian, Billy, and Jorge, for their insights and expertise. And I want to say a big shout out to our sponsor, Captivate IQ, for sponsoring today's event. Again, this event is being recorded, as well as the key takeaways and the recording will be made available on the MSP previous event page before the end of day. You'll also receive an email if you registered, so be on the lookout for that email. And we'll see you at the next event. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.